Hello and welcome. My name is Carol Carter and I'm the founder and CEO of Global Minded. This is the final day of our 10-week conference. It's been really wonderful. This week has been the culmination of our programs that started in Earth Week. And this week has all been about first generation to college and being able to share inside secrets of career success, what employers look for in people they hire. And today you're in for a special treat because we are looking at first gen role models and what success, inclusive leadership, and contribution looks like from a number of people who were all first gen, including one of our Every Learner Everywhere Global Minded ambassadors, who's at North Carolina A&T, and that's Serita Liles. And so almost all of our sessions the last 10 weeks have represented students' voice. And we know that we can't solve for any student issues without students at the table to inform and advance what's happening. So we're delighted to have all of you here today. And I'm really thrilled to introduce our panel leader, Merritt McKenzie. And Merritt is one of our new board members at Global Minded. He also just this week started a new job, which he'll share with you. He's got a long history in healthcare. And he also has a really amazing personal story, which several of you may have read about when we published it in early April. So welcome, Merritt. We're glad you're here and looking forward to spending the hour with you and your panelists.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carol. I appreciate it. I'm really excited to be here. And so I'm looking forward to this engaging conversation with everyone that we have here on today's call. And so what I figured I'd do, just give a quick snapshot background about myself, and then I would just kick it over to the panelists to do the same. And so just kind of picking up where Carol started is that I am a first gen leader as well. And my family, we moved to the States from Kingston, Jamaica, back in the late 70s. And I was the last one of my family to come to the States, and first of my family to finish a bachelor's degree as well as a master's degree. I have a bachelor's in occupational therapy and a master's in health administration. So that said, I've been in healthcare for the last 26 plus years and gone from doing roles in as a clinician, a clinical leader, operational leader, sales, running sales organizations, as well as a general management in a presidential division president role. And to Carol's point, most recently this week, 2 days ago, I started a new role as a chief operating officer for Phoenix Physical Therapy, which is an outpatient physical therapy company. So I'm excited about that start. So and I'm passionate about this work, as you can imagine, just how we're able to share our stories. And I look forward to hearing everyone's story as well. So I'm going to kick it over to Kwesi, if you don't mind stepping in and sharing a little bit about your background.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kwesi Edwards. I'm really excited to be here and support the amazing work that the Global Minded Group has been doing. I'm currently a board member, part of the California Community College Foundation, which as a group supports the largest higher education institution in the country. So I'm really excited about the work there. And everything about the California Community Colleges is based upon diversity and supporting first gen, in many cases, learners and educators. I'm also a principal go-to-market specialist at Amazon Web Services, which means I help customers bring their database and their data up into the cloud. That's my day job. Previous to that, I've run teams of pre-sales engineers and enterprise architects throughout Silicon Valley, including Oracle and Informatica. And I'm excited to be here and share a little bit as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kwesi. Appreciate that. I'm going to head on over to Anthony, if you want to kick us off as well.
Yeah, you bet, Merritt. Thanks much. Anthony Newton here. Little different background. I started out my life in the military. So if anybody is interested in that side of things, that's where I started. Served as a veteran and paid for my way through school there. First gen student. So I'm kind of proud of the fact that I paid my way and earned my way through. When I graduated from college, I ended up at Microsoft in Redmond and spent quite a few years up there. Working very hard, very long hours, but learned a ton. I then did postgraduate work at University of Washington in product management, which turned out to be my passion. And I've spent probably the last 18 years taking products to market. In 2001, I came to Colorado, worked for Kwesi Communications, where we launched one of the first top 10 internet backbones. And that's kind of followed on with me launching everything from security services to cloud services and IoT offerings. Most recently, in February 2020, I decided to leave the big Fortune 200 world and started my own firm, which is focusing specifically in data science, data analytics. So that's my most recent challenge that I'm working on here. So very proud to be here today. My connection to Global Minded has come via Microsoft. I'm the chapter president in Denver for Microsoft alum. And so Carol and I are working very closely to get as many Microsoft executives and employees involved in mentoring. So that's kind of my immediate mission right now is getting that up and running with Carol and team here. So very, very proud to be here today, and thank you.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Anthony. Vanecia, you want to kick us off as well?
Sure, I'm happy to. Thank you so much, Merritt. My name is Vanecia Kerr, and I currently serve as the Chief Impact Officer at Mile High United Way. And in terms of my personal first-gen story, I am a first-generation college graduate, originally from New York, went to one of our wonderful historically Black colleges and universities called Hampton University in Virginia. And I was very fortunate that my parents actually worked multiple jobs to be able to afford for me to go to college. And I didn't realize at the time when I was in college what a tremendous gift that was, that I was able to graduate from college debt-free because of what they were able to do. And they did this working blue-collar jobs. And so you can imagine that meant multiple shifts for them. And then when I was able to enter the workforce down in Manhattan, both in the World Trade Center and then in Midtown Manhattan, there were some things that I certainly learned as a first generation college graduate that my parents just could not teach me. So they had wonderful experiences where they had jobs that they loved, that they stayed in until they retired, because that was typical for their generation. And then I enter, very much a white collar environment and not have a lot of guidance on what does it mean to be successful, and how can you be successful in that type of environment. So I have committed that for anyone who wants to know and anyone who has any questions about how to succeed in the corporate sector when you're a first generation college graduate, I will talk to anybody about the things that I have learned and share, so that they don't have to make the same mistakes that I did, because I made quite a few in just trying to understand the landscape. And certainly I'm really honored to be a part of this panel discussion, and I look forward to all that we will discuss today.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you, Vanecia. As everyone can see, this is going to be a fantastic conversation. And we've got folks from so many different backgrounds and so intelligent and such a great success stories along the way. So it's my pleasure to introduce our next panelist. Lon, would you like to go next, please? You're on mute there.
Rookie mistake, sorry. Hi, I'm Phan. So I guess my first gen story is my family are Vietnamese refugees, and we escaped Vietnam in the 1970s, came to America literally with the clothes on our back. And it was really the communities and our neighbors that kind of clothed us and really kind of helped us build a life in America. And I grew up in Inglewood, California, in Los Angeles, and we didn't have much, but my parents always focused on education. And my mother was a hairdresser, and she raised our family of 5 on her income of $15,000 a year. And through hard work, I got into Stanford University, and then I ended up going to Harvard Graduate School of Education, for the past 20 years, I've been focusing mainly in marketing. Most recently, I was at Fortune magazine, creating a startup within Fortune. And then I ended up leaving the corporate world, and I'm now the founder and CEO of Community of Seven. And our whole goal is to bring executives, thought leaders, and change makers together to make the world a better place. So that's a little bit about me.
Sorry about that. I had some tech issues myself here, Lan, so rookie mistake on my end too. So thank you. Appreciate you sharing your story as well. What a fantastic story. And I definitely want to walk into our next panelist, Zuleika. You ready?
Perfect. Thank you.
Did I pronounce your name okay?
You did. You did. It was
Awesome.
perfect. Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you so much for the invitation to serve on this amazing panel. My name is Zuleika Johnson, and I live in Colorado Springs. I work as a Vice President of Outreach and Opportunity at Pomar Foundation. We're a local grant-making organization whose mission is to enhance, encourage, and promote the current and future well-being of Coloradans. And I have the pleasure and honor of directing our Emerging Leaders Development Program, which is designed to empower minority leaders in Colorado Springs and Pueblo through civic engagement and leadership opportunities. So we offer scholarships and opportunities for minority leaders to participate in leadership development programs and then encourage them to sit on boards and commissions across the state. So that is our goal. And I'm a recipient and a product of the program. So I'm very honored to be in this role. I'm originally from New York. I was born and raised in the Bronx, and my parents moved from Dominican Republic in the early 80s. So first in my household to go to college, and have had the honor to have amazing mentors along the way. It's really hard when you don't have that experience and people in your household who have gone to college and who can help you through all of the difficult and cumbersome process of applying for financial aid and what do you do when you get there and all of those pieces. So I've been really fortunate enough to find people along the way who have taken me in as a little sister or another daughter who have helped me along the way. So again, I'm really happy to be here and I look forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Glad to hear it. And we have such a diverse background of people here as well, both domestic as well as international. So that's pretty awesome. Last but definitely not least, one of the reasons why we're doing this conversation, I'd like to introduce Serita. And if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your story.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Serita Liles. I'm a recent graduate from North Carolina Agriculture and Technical State University. And yeah, I was a Global Minded Ambassador. And I also was inside of TRIO Student Support Services, which is a program for first generation college students. I grew up in also New York. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. And then I moved to North Carolina. And yeah, it's just been, me and my mom, and yeah, went to A&T to try to get a better life for myself. Like many of you, I also am a first generation college student. And also like with that, I seen like my mom struggle. And so like dealing with that, I had to like learn a lot of things on my own. But I will say Global Minded has definitely helped me regarding like mentoring and learning how to schedule and things of all of that nature. So definitely a great resource that I don't regret at all.
Sorry about that. Issues again. Awesome. Serita, thank you so much. I appreciate your story as well. And Carol just dropped in the chat that there's a lot of New York we got going on here. So which is fantastic. That's awesome. And we got a visitor, she's adorable. Thank you, Lan, for sharing. So everyone, I cannot tell you, I'm so excited to have this conversation. All of you have such an amazing background. We have I want to walk through a few questions, just kind of get your insight and intel, just let's have a conversation. So I'd love to start with Vanecia, if you don't mind. Give me your thoughts on how do you feel you've developed as a first gen leader? Tell me about that.
Sure. Thank you so much, Merritt. Developing as a first gen leader, as I said, I made some mistakes in the beginning. And as I entered the corporate sector, which I ended up staying in the corporate sector a little over 20 years, and then transitioned to the nonprofit sector 10 years ago. So having the opportunity to work on both the corporate side as well as the nonprofit side. And then if you add in my educational experience, my degree is in political science. I have I've been dabbling a little bit on the volunteer side in the public sector as well. So being a first gen leader and having different experiences in multiple industries, one of the things that became very important was the opportunity to develop mentors along the way. And it wasn't something that I knew coming out of college that I needed to have. And I think, and I don't know if this is true for a lot of the first gen leaders that are part of the panel, but I was used to working very hard and fighting for everything that I could get. And started to realize that that wasn't enough in order to be successful, that I needed to have people around me who could also fight for me, if you will, and also be able to support me in my leadership and as I was growing in terms of my career. So I started to develop mentors from lots of different walks of life, people who were very different than me, people who had very different backgrounds than I had. I thought it was important that I had my own set of diverse leaders around me who could provide the guidance and in some cases, opportunities to have conversations that would allow me to think differently, that would allow me to have different kinds of experiences, allow me to hear about their experiences, someone that I could bounce ideas off of. So I have, like to this day, 5 to 6 people that I have as mentors that I can call on. And I know these are people who will be available no matter what time of the day and night. And sometimes, that is necessary, but that has helped me to develop as a leader and continue to grow both in the corporate sector where I had the opportunity to move through several different types of leadership roles at a Fortune 100 company, to ultimately leaving those roles and deciding to dedicate the rest of my career to helping others in the nonprofit sector, and having people all along the way who are there to help support and guide me. Even with almost 30 years of experience now, I always consider myself to be someone who's a continuous learner. And I think it's really important to keep that in mind, that there's always more to learn, there's always more ways to grow. And having people around you and taking advantage of different learning opportunities is really critical to develop as a first gen leader.
Sure. No, that's fantastic. Thank you. So much wisdom in that. You made me think about a couple of things that stood out to me were just the whole thought process and the power behind having a mentor and or sponsors, right? I'd love to hear anybody from the panel. What are your thoughts as it relates to the power of having a mentor and or sponsor as a first gen student? Any thoughts, anyone?
Merritt, I assume you're asking us as well here. So I would just chime in with a couple thoughts. I categorize it both in mentors and peers. And so often I've looked at and learned along the way that when you think of mentors, whether you're at school or your first job or any job in a company, I always recommend you have a mentor inside that organization that can help guide you. But I also recommend that you have a mentor outside of that organization that's neutral, that can give you a perspective that isn't involved with the day-to-day politics. Yeah. So that's one thing. From a peer perspective, if you have aspirations of reaching a certain goal, I often tell people you're the sum total of the 5 people you hang around the most. And so if you're hanging around, felons and Hell's Angels on the weekend, you're probably not going to make it into the the goal that you're setting. I'm being facetious there and joking,
Sure.
but the point of it is you want to make sure that the people you surround yourself with have the same values and are, guided toward the same direction that you're heading. And the sum total of those 5 individuals are going to help you grow, just as a mentor will help you grow. That's a comment I'd make.
That's
Merritt,
fantastic.
Merritt,
Lance,
yeah, I'd love to kind of, for many of the folks, the young students that are watching this, to clarify the difference between a mentor and a sponsor, because I know
Yes.
that was something I really didn't understand until I got into the corporate world. So
Sure.
a mentor is someone who will give you advice, who will, give you career tips or life tips, right? A sponsor is usually within a company, someone who might be 2 or 3 levels above you that will actually advocate for you in meetings or in HR or to get to your next level. So when you're kind of making those relationships, once you guys go into the corporate world or, nonprofit world, is about really kind of understanding and building those deep relationships with people, and that there is kind of a small, difference between the two, and that we need both mentors and sponsors, and they're equally important. And also, when you have the opportunity, what I always say is bring the elevator down, right? So once you get into these positions where you are, succeeding, to help other folks. And I think it's this notion of don't be afraid to ask, because this is the thing. If you ask, the worst they can say is no. But if you don't ask, your answer is always no.
Well, there's so much power in that. I'm taking notes as you speak and land. I'm just bring the elevator down. I love that. That's fantastic. Just kind of picking up and that first question, again, how do you become a first gen leader? I'd love to get your thoughts as well, Kwesi, on this. You work for one of my selfishly favorite companies within Amazon. And so I'd love to get your thought process and your background experience on how do you do that? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just bridge the gap from the previous conversation. It was a sponsor from a previous company that was my sponsor that helped me get into this company. So you are planting those seeds with the early people that you relate to in your career. They may have an opportunity to help you at another company or other places. So absolutely. In response to those first generation leaders, I think that at both within the board that I sit on and with the company that I'm at, the diversity of the leadership groups is very, very important. So what I mean by that, there's a saying, which is that if there are 8 people in a meeting and 7 people have the same opinion, or 8 of them have the same opinion, 7 of them are not necessary. I've been at many companies where the idea of that group was to come to consensus. I'm much more interested in the groups that I'm in now, where the diversity of those ideas is what is reached for, is what is looked for. So both coming into an organization, I recommend going into organizations where that diversity is looked for, is not frowned upon. I think that's one point. And then to the lift as you climb and bring the elevator down point, when you get into those positions, please look to bring in those additional diverse opinions, because that's what makes things better, whether you're in the corporate world, the nonprofit world, or the education. Those diverse opinions that come from diverse lived experiences are what makes those organizations better. So understanding the strength of that first generation uniqueness that you do have.
That's fantastic. A lot of what we're talking about, to your point, Kwesi, is network, right? When you have that mentor, you have that sponsor, as you so eloquently shared, Lan. It's about networking. And I don't know about everyone else on this panel, but networking is a challenge. It may not be the most easiest thing to do. Lan, you've been in marketing for a long time, so you that's what you're about, I would assume. But I'd love to hear from you, Zuleika, as to what do you think about how do you leverage the Global Minded network for your personal or professional goals? What is your take on that?
Well, I will admit I am new to Global Minded. So I will be taking advantage of these networks and these connections, starting today. But I will be using a lot of the same things that I've used throughout my career. And I think it's to Lan's earlier point that if you don't ask, you don't get anything. And you'll find that 99% of the time when you ask for help, someone will want to help you. Especially when you see yourself reflected in a leader that may look like you, or I mean, sometimes not even that, but you can find similar stories, and we all want to help each other reach the next level and get ahead as well. So just going out and asking, and now students have everything that they need at the edge of their fingertips. I mean, you can literally go online and Google the name of a person that works at a place that you want to work for, or has, followed a path that you want to follow. So take advantage of all those tools and all of those resources that you have, and go on LinkedIn and send messages and invite people to a coffee. And you'd be surprised how often people want to jump at that opportunity to lend a hand and help you reach your dreams and the potential that you have as well.
That's well said. Yeah, Lan, I was actually going to circle back. I'm glad you
Well,
jumped in.
I don't want to dominate the conversation, but I'm so excited about this one.
That's good.
All of you watching this right now, so if you don't have an account on LinkedIn, sign up right now. You see all of our names on there. Add us right now. And so LinkedIn is the social platform. It's like the Facebook for people who want to be in business, right? And you can actually make these amazing connections on LinkedIn. And I had an exec from LinkedIn speak at one of my events. And one of the things she said was so insightful, and it was this: LinkedIn is a platform of generosity. So what that means is, when people, if you're not comfortable posting about something, then look at someone's comment. So let's say Carol does a post about, her work and what she's doing. You can comment in that. So it's giving. And, really focus on the giving part. And I know, Merritt, you asked earlier, it's kind of scary to network. That's what I do for a living. But this is what a lot of people don't know. I'm actually an introvert. I feel really uncomfortable in social networking situations. And what I used to tell my team is this: when you're at an event, or when you're in even a social networking situation, pretend like that's your home and everyone there is your guest. Your job is to make them feel at home. So when you turn that table from, well, I don't want to feel like I'm taking from them, turn it around and just say, how can I help someone? How can I make them feel like, oh, your comment was so great? When you focus on the giving, it becomes a lot easier. It's not about cheesy networking. It's about, how do you really build connections with people? And if you change the mind frame from that, it becomes really easy. But the first thing is create an account right now on LinkedIn, connect with all of us, and start following people that you really admire and see what they're posting, read about it, comment, because it's all about relationships, because you want to help the people that you know. So get to know a lot of people.
That's so timely, and I'm so glad. Thank you, Lan. I was waiting for you. This is totally your span here. But to that point, Serita, you are at that time now where you've just finished up with school. Networking is going to be so pivotal for you right now. Give us your thoughts. Give us your thoughts on whether, what are you thinking or feeling about this going into networking? Is there anything that you found that's been helpful, whether through the Global Minded Network or through any other just gross networking avenues? Give me your thoughts there.
Okay. So as far as like networking, I can definitely relate to what Lan said. I'm sorry, is it Lan or Lan? I think it's Lan. Okay.
Yeah.
what she said, as far as like me, naturally, I am like more introverted. So I did have to like reach out a lot, especially with the Global Minded ambassadorship. So I had to like reach out to see like what other students, how were they feeling as far as like transitioning through classes during the COVID pandemic. And, so that pushed me to actually reach out more and to network more. And I was able to actually have conversations with people that I wouldn't normally have conversations with. And then that would build networking in the future, where it's like, okay, we had this conversation about how was classes like during the pandemic, and then that led to LinkedIn, and then from LinkedIn you were able to see that person maybe at graduation, and then from there you see, oh, they got a job opportunity, whether it is with Amazon or Cisco or any other of these companies. And that networking helps you to not only develop your character, but it also helps you to see, okay, these are the people I do want to surround myself with, because they're at the level of success that I want to reach. So you may not feel as though you're at this place where you're the best at networking, but that practice of just reaching out to people will definitely really help you in the long run. And eventually you'll feel comfortable just being able to talk to anybody and in any setting too. It doesn't necessarily even have to just be at work. You can network with somebody at the grocery store. You can network with somebody, like how we're networking now online, or reaching out through LinkedIn. So yeah, I definitely think I definitely think networking is very successful in terms of just getting to where you want to be in life.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. No, Serita, that's well said. A lot of wisdom there as well. And if you were to think, Serita, just that, or any of the students, anyone who's watching, if you were to say, hey, do this. I know Lan said LinkedIn, right? But from a student's lens, what would you think is that one thing that they should do right now as well today?
Okay, let's see. LinkedIn was definitely very important. But maybe making like a vision board. I know that's helped me a lot. Trying to like pinpoint like what I want to do. And it doesn't have to be exact, but think about the different things you might want to accomplish, whether it's like, okay, at 30, I want to buy my first house. You know what I'm saying? Then you start reading up on things about owning, like home owning. You start thinking about, okay, what type of income do I even want to earn to be able to maintain that house? Just have like an actual goal in mind and work towards that goal. It really doesn't have to be super elaborate. But as long as you have your eye on something, your vision on something, that's definitely what I would say you need to continue, as far as including with the LinkedIn.
That's awesome. That's awesome. No, thank you there. Anthony, I know you had dropped in some information on a book that you recommend. Any thoughts and insights as we were talking about networking?
Yeah, the saying goes, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and doing nothing is going to get you nowhere. So I would just encourage you, whatever vehicle you choose, and there's been numerous perfect examples given here. Those are all great ways to get started. Don't wait. That's the one thing I would encourage everyone. Don't wait. Even if you're in school, don't wait till you've graduated. Coming into that last semester, start networking, start taking action and doing something sooner rather than later, because this is a muscle you have to build. And you want to do this for the rest of your life. It's not a destination, it's a journey. So treat it that way. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And Lan, you did a great job of explaining, for us introverts, I definitely in that category. It's not a natural thing to do. So it's probably as easy as missing a workout, but you got to keep striving to get it done, and start soon and take action quickly. That would be my advice.
That's awesome. Yeah, Vanecia, go for it.
Yes, I was just going to jump in here too, as someone who is an extrovert. So I don't mind talking to people that I do not know, and I welcome the opportunity to be thrown into a room with hundreds of people. I get a lot of energy from that, and seeing how many people can I meet. But I will also say that even though being an extrovert and not really having issues in social settings, there's still an art to networking, and you still need to know like what to say. Just because I don't have problems talking to people doesn't mean that I automatically know what to say when I am put into that room. especially if there is a networking event. But like other people have shared, there are lots of books that are out there. You have to find something that is comfortable and authentic for you and who you are as a person. It doesn't hurt to have a little practice around this as well, because I don't think it's something that you just automatically just know how to do. So it does require a little bit of intentionality behind it as well. When I first started networking because of a job that I had to get out there and go to some of these events, I had to be comfortable in talking about things that would allow us to advance the work that I was doing. So there was some intentionality around why I was in the room in the first place. I was representing the company, but I needed to meet certain people. So I would set for myself a goal. If there were opportunities where you had a list of the attendees that were going to be there, or which companies were going to be represented there, or which organizations, I would make it a point to say, well, I'm going to make sure that I talk to at least 5 people who represent X. So I set for myself a goal, and it became a little bit of a challenge, right? So I challenged myself to make sure that I'm going to accomplish this at the end of this event. And that gave me an opportunity not to just think about, well, I'm just going to be in this room talking about the weather, but that I was going to have something specific that I wanted to accomplish at the end of my time there. So that's another way to just kind of think about networking, is think about, what do you want to accomplish by attending this particular event? And are there people that you know that may be in the room that you want to make sure that you have a chance to talk to? And I would set those kinds of goals so that when I walk out, I can say, well, did I accomplish that? Did I accomplish what I set out to do? And was I prepared for the conversations? Because if I knew I was going to speak to, or I knew the CEO of some company was going to be there, and I wanted to talk to that person, the time for me to think about what am I going to say to them was not when I'm right there in front of them. I could think about that ahead of time, because I can think about what did I want to accomplish. So it requires a little bit of preparation in some cases. And then in other cases, it's a little bit about challenging yourself to step out of your comfort zone and making sure that you have something that you want to accomplish, and that you can test yourself at the end to see, did I actually accomplish what I set out to do?
Wow. Folks, I don't know about you, but I want to be Vanecia when I grow up because she is so confident when she walks into a room. Her presence is there. She's able to get command to that room. And to that point, I'll tell you, Vanecia, and probably many of us experienced this when I was growing up and going through school. I didn't have that confidence. I was very insecure, especially as a first gen, as an immigrant. You have that insecurity, you have that imposter syndrome, as we all experience. And so I'd love, maybe Zuleika, you can give us some feedback here is, when you think about having imposter syndrome or that insecurity, you tend not to take action. You tend not to do what Vanecia was mentioning, and because you're nervous and you don't think anyone will want to talk to you, what have you. Zuleika, I'd love to hear, if you were to say, hey, say this, what would that thing be to say to start that conversation, whether it be on LinkedIn or if you're at an event, just to get folks started. If they're a student and they're finishing up, they're like Serita, they're finishing up, what is going to be that introduction? How would they start just to begin that conversation? Any thoughts there, Zuleika?
Yeah, so in my previous role before this and most of my career in nonprofit, I have been a fundraiser. So I'm very used to having those very first conversation, sometimes awkward conversations, right?
Perfect.
Because my goal is to ask for money, right? So
That's right.
how do I do that? But I think a lot of it is just kind of realizing that they're probably just as nervous as you are. And it's kind of bringing it down to earth, right? Like, we're just normal human beings, and how can we connect with one another and get to know each other? So I oftentimes, when I found myself in a room full of people that I wanted to talk to for business reasons, I always tried to find a way to bring it back to the personal and bring it back to the human level, and just ask a simple question like, where are you from, right? Like, if I was in a room and Vanecia was there, and we both found out we were from New York, I mean, it would be an immediate connection and all the barriers would be broken down and the awkwardness would go away. And so sometimes you just have to find simple commonalities to be able to connect with people. And the imposter syndrome is real. I mean, it is there. And that is a challenge that I still struggle with today, to be honest with you. And I think it's something that you have to actively work at, whether it's finding resources and books to read online, autobiographies from other people who have made it, right? That you can look to and see, wow, they've gone through quite a bit and they still were able to overcome all of the obstacles. But self-care is really, really important. And, you know, I have a therapist and I talk to her about it. And, you know, it's like, what are all the things that you need to do for yourself as an individual? Not just as a professional, right? Not just as a student, but as an individual person, as a person of color. What are the things that you need to do to take care of yourself and recognize why you may have some of these feelings and emotions, to be able to overcome them and see that you are the star that you are and that you can shine in these places. But it's a struggle and it's something that you have to work at every single day. So I don't know if I have the answers, but I try.
Listen, you do have the answer. I just wrote that down. Another great quote. You are the star that you are. That should be a book right there, that alone. Kwesi, you've been nodding, smiling as Zuleika was speaking. You seem to have a lot of agreement here. Give me some thoughts. What are you thinking?
Good. I mean, well, first, I'm just humbled to follow these two amazing women. No way I'm gonna speak impart as much wisdom, but just really privileged to be in your space. As I heard you speak, there's a couple things that really came to my mind that we hadn't talked about. And one is knowing yourselves. I was thinking back to my early career coming out of college. I had no idea what I wanted to do. But I did know certain things that I liked. So I was an engineer coming out of a school that's mostly known for their business. So I knew I liked technology, but also with a sort of business slant to it. That sort of led me towards this role they called sales consulting, right? The technical person that went along with the salesperson that did the demos and answered all the technical questions. I had no idea that role existed, but I knew the kinds of things that I liked. As I've moved from different roles within the company, my title changed, my responsibilities changed, but I knew the kinds of things that I like to do and the kinds of things that I didn't like to do. You coming out now will have so many more opportunities than we had before. I have an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old kid, and they want to be YouTube stars. We had no idea what that was. So it's not about, okay, well, I need to do what my parents did or other things, but do you know yourself? Do you like to do certain types of things so that when these new roles exist and these new amazing companies come out, you can say, okay, I want to do this because I know the kinds of things that I like to do. So spending some time to know yourself. Strength Finders is one book that I like that sort of helps to do that. There's one that I read back in college called Fire in the Belly, which sort of talked about finding that inner strength to sort of reach out. There's multiple ways to do that. So I don't have the answer on the best way to do it, but the point I wanted to bring up is know the kinds of things that you want, not the labels or the heading of it, but the kinds of things that you are, that you will find, or you will even make new roles within these companies to do.
That's so well said, Kwesi. As you were speaking, what I think about is it's about personal insights and self-awareness, right? Just knowing what your self-worth, your value is to anyone, to any organization. And Serita, I'd love to get your thoughts here as well as to if you were to think about what is the one thing that you think is important as a first-gen student coming out of school. What is the one most powerful thing that you can think about, a lesson learned that you would share with the audience as to, hey, this is what I learned, this is what I figured out, this is the power that I think you have. What would it be? What would it that you share? What would that one thing be? I love putting you on a spot. I love it.
Because the first thing I thought about when I graduated, I was like, okay, my life is going to change. And it changed, but it didn't. So I feel like, let me explain what I mean by that. So I feel like it changed as far as now I have a degree, this is what, my mom pushed for me, my family pushed for me to have a degree, to, have a different lifestyle than they did. But I feel like that's the only thing that changed. What didn't change was my mindset in a way, because I still have a lot of learning to do. I still have a lot of growth to do. So I feel like that part didn't necessarily change. Like we was talking about imposter syndrome and having to step outside of your shell and stuff like that. That's a work in progress. It doesn't just change overnight. So I will definitely say that's something to keep in mind when you do graduate and you go through life, that, it's a learning lesson. It's always going to be, something new that you're learning, and, own up to your story. I mean, you don't have to fake that, everything, because I like me, I don't know everything, and I'm learning. There's a lot of things that I'm even learning while on this Zoom call right now. So definitely think about that as far as like going through life, learning the different stages in life, learning that it's a process to everything. So yeah.
I love it. What you're saying is you've got to be a consummate eternal learner. And this is why, Serita, you're going to be a phenomenal leader, is because you embrace that learning ability. There's no question about that. And so when I think about that, Anthony, I'd love to get your insight as well. What would be that one insight for to share with folks, that this is one thing that I would suggest that makes you, help you to be successful, whether that be personally or professionally?
Merritt, I'll answer that and piggybacking off of what's been said here, because those are really important. The know thyself concept is absolutely critical. And I think it's critical because, as the saying in the military was, you can only fight the way you practice. And so this is something you have to think about, is every single day is a training day, meaning you're working on yourself to be better today than you were yesterday. But to piggyback on this has been an observation of watching people for their entire careers. And if I had to say it in one way, it's integrated growth. So we sometimes use the words growth, or we use the words continuous learning. But I've seen people have a heart attack and die at a conference. I've seen multiple divorces. I've seen individual executives get to the top, worth millions, and literally have no friends. And so when I say integrated growth, you have to realize you're going to go into the workforce and you're going to get sucked into the workforce, and that's going to become a very important part of your life. But don't forget to think of these categories: your physical self, your mental self, your emotional self, your intuitional self, and what I would say is called spiritual. And by spiritual, I don't mean religion, I mean your heart and mind, right? So spiritual can be whatever that means to you. But if you look at your growth, your integrated growth, and as you move forward, don't get focused on only your career. I have friends that have children, they don't even know their sons because all they did was work. Now, success is a very subjective term. That may be success to some. To me personally, it's not. So you have to define what success is and make sure that you're living your life based on your principles, your purpose, and your passion. But don't forget to look at your life as a integrated growth in terms of just singular type growth. It's not all about career. So think about those things. Once again, the physical, the mental, emotional, intuitional, and the spiritual side. And I promise you'll have a much healthier outlook as you go through life. And as you become leaders in your company, you're going to be great coaches. And coaching is what we really need in the management side of things as we go forward, that empower their people and provide an environment for them to do their best work.
I don't know about y'all, but I feel like we just got a mic drop moment. Anthony just really just laid it home and synthesized this whole conversation, which was very well done, very well done. Lan, I know you've been feeling this as well and feeling some of Anthony's comments. What would you add to what he said?
Love what Anthony just said. One of the tips I got right after high school was this: no one is at their deathbed wishing they had spent more time at the office. So when you look at it, what's really important is your family, your friends, your connection. So as you're climbing this mythical ladder, Just make sure that you're aligned with your values and what's important to you. But I want to kind of rewind to, the whole notion of imposter syndrome, and it made me think of Michelle Obama. And this reporter had asked her, well, don't you feel intimidated when you're in these meetings with world leaders and, politicians and some of the most powerful people in the world? And she stepped back and she said, not really, because I realized they're really not that smart. But I mean, this is the thing is, a lot of times we get so intimidated by other people. Here's the thing. Everyone at one point in their life is a novice. So every expert was one, like, Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, whoever it is, Oprah. At one point, that was their first time and they were afraid. So all of us in some ways are masters at certain subjects in our zone of genius. And in some aspects, we don't know. And this is the one advice I would give to first gens who are watching this. And I say this from my experience. And I'm going to say something that's really personal. When I was going through college in my first few years, I was ashamed that I was poor. I was ashamed that I was a refugee. I was ashamed that I didn't go to Exeter and went to one of the worst public schools in Los Angeles. And when I thought about it afterwards, and when I realized, and when I got more mature, I realized those were things that were my superpower. And those are things that make me so proud of who I am. The fact that my mother escaped, while she was pregnant, this war, and that I worked my way up to Stanford and to Harvard, right? That I had to work harder than everyone else. And my strength, what I thought was a weakness, was really my superpower and strength. Who you are, be proud of who you are. That is probably the most important thing as you go into the world. Whoever you are, do not be ashamed of who you are, because that is your power. That is who you are. Don't try to be anyone else. Because when I first went into the corporate world, I was trying to be like John, Sam, whatever it is, right? That's not who I was. And when I became authentically who I am, that's when I started succeeding. That's when I went into the C-suite and the executive roles and all this other stuff, because I was unapologetically who I was as a Vietnamese refugee, as an immigrant, as first gen. Be proud of who you are.
Wow. Wow. Okay,
Merritt,
two
can I
mic
jump in
drops.
here?
2 mic drops. You're going to give us a third, Vanecia?
I don't know. I mean, these two statements here were pretty powerful. I don't know if I'm gonna do that, but I did want to share that those two statements were extremely powerful. And as both Anthony and Len were talking, the other thing that I thought about is about being in the room, and being in situations where you look around and then you think about like the imposter syndrome. I know I've been there before, but then what I also started to realize over time was that I was in the room, and there was a reason why I was in the room. And so just as everyone else had the opportunity and deserved to make a statement and answer the question and be a part of the strategy, I was in the room to also do the exact same thing. And someone saw within me that I needed to be in the room to participate in these conversations. So I had to stop saying like, well, why am I here? Or should I be here? Or any of those things, because I realized I was there. So if I'm in the room, then I need to make a contribution. And I need to make a contribution that is impactful, just like Lan said, based upon my own experiences, because that's why I'm in the room. I'm in the room so that I can speak up and say the kinds of things that would add value to the conversation. So I think that is also really important. And then the other thing that I will mention, just on point too, as you were talking about those kinds of things that are important, is that I have usually, there's always young mothers who are working moms who will reach out to me and ask me about like, what is it like being a working mom, and what tips do I have, because I do have a son and a husband. And this is to Anthony's point, the work is not going anywhere and you want to do a great job, but you also need to make sure that you have that balance, because I will not be able to go back and repeat first grade with my son, or watch him learn how to ride a bike for the very first time. I mean, all of those things, they happen in that moment, and you have to be able to balance like what's really important right now and what's not as important right now. And as I mentioned, I've always been a hard worker, so I will always continue to be a hard worker, but I always make time for my family. And I also know my family knows, like, when I'm working, but when it's time for my family, I will make time for them. That's absolutely true, because my family is very important to me. And the other thing that I will mention is I also make time for myself, just me.
Awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome.
And don't lose sight of that too, because that balance in family, work, and taking care of yourself is really important, because you can't take care of anyone else, work or family, if you're not taking good care of yourself. So
Well
that's
said.
the last thing that I will say.
Thank you. Well, you touched on kind of our final point, which was being a role model and having impact. So I'd love to get starting with Kwesi, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, Kwesi, as a role model. What is it that you like? What is the difference that you want to make in the world as a role model?
The easy part is I want to leave the world better than I found it, right, for my kids. That's the easy part. Now, how am I going to do that? I think that, it's thinking big, but I act on the one-to-one basis, right? I'd like to find individuals that I can help, not teach them something, but get some of the obstacles out of the way. Because if it's teaching, they can only be as good as I am at what I do. But I believe I can help them get the obstacles out of their way to reach the greatness that they can really be, that they can really reach. So that's how I really try to personalize my mentoring, and really try to help make others better whenever I can.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Zuleika, what about you? In 10 seconds, what is the greatest impact you want to make on the world as a role model?
I just want to open all the doors, like the doors were open for me. Just want to continue to do that. And, one of the things that's hard for first gen students is that our successes are not our own. They belong to our families. And that's probably one of the biggest, sometimes burden that we carry. But how can we continue to open the doors for other people so that we don't have to carry that burden for all of us, right? How can we all be a part of the success, and help uplift all of us together?
Fantastic. Anthony? You're on mute, buddy. There you go.
Thanks about that. Yeah, I'll answer that one, Mary. Through, I preached about your, purpose, principles, passion, and that's the foundation of your why. So I'll read you my purpose. It's a bit personal, but I think it's very appropriate here. I'm not so much concerned about what exactly, but my purpose is to master myself through integrated growth in order to help others overcome any major challenge in what I call life ambushes in their lives. And by doing so, my life should be an inspiration to others and set an example of life of service, continuous learning, individual thinking, and the defender of liberty. So that's my purpose.
Awesome. Well said. Well said. Thank you. And Lan?
So I basically left corporate world to build a business that focuses on my value of changing the world. And so I bring CEOs, executives, thought leaders, change makers together to make the world a better place, as Kwesi said, for our children. So
I just need to be around Lan. It's so cool what you're doing. And last, definitely not least, Serita, you're why we're here. You're an example of that. So as a recent graduate, what would you say is the impact that you want to make on the world as a role model?
Just to inspire people and to show them that the dreams that you have, nothing is too big for you to take on. So, yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you. Well, I'll tell you, this was fantastic, Carol. I really enjoyed this conversation. I'll kind of wrap up. One of my favorite quotes is by Abraham Lincoln, and is the best way to predict the future is to create it. And this panel right here, we are doing some special things in our own right, and we are creating the future by the time that we've shared here today. So Carol, your thoughts? You want to wrap us up?
Yes, thank you so much. And it was really great hearing all of your insights. And what I want to say to a lot of our students watching is that those of you who are participating in our Strong Summer Start leadership programs, many of you will be matched with mentors who are business people like these folks that you've just spent the last hour with. And so you don't know what it's like to work with a mentor. You may never have done that before, but if you have an open mind, and Serita had a mentor this year, and there's so much you can learn. And then there's so much you have that you can be teaching them, and that will help them in their place of work be a better inclusive leader. There's just a lot of reciprocity for those relationships. So that I want to give you that thought, and then also want to share with everybody that our conference next year is going to be live, and it's going to be June 22nd is the pre-conference opening dinner, the 22nd, and the 23rd and 24th of June. So we want everyone to put that on their calendars right now. And for those of you at your different universities, we'll see if we can get your universities to have you all be have a delegate from your campus to be there and to meet, thousands of leaders like these leaders who are just really great role models for you.